So in this video, I'm going to share with you how to not take things personally, even when it's personal. Literally everyone is self-absorbed and for the most part has their own head up their own butt most of the time. So the things that other people are saying and doing most of the time have very little to do with you. So the first thing that we want to do is understand why we are taking things personally. Sometimes you might feel upset by something, but you'll think in your head, like, why am I taking this so personally? Like, why do I care so much? So there's a few factors at play, and it helps to understand what drives us as humans. So each and every one of us operates off an internal reward system, and every decision that we make and everything we do is a weighing up of costs and benefits. And those costs and benefits are very much associated with our status, so where we stand within our group, within our family, within our tribe as such, and what's going to serve us best in terms of having all of our needs met. Some of us are more sensitive than others, so some of us are really emotionally stable, not much phases us, and we don't take much personally at all, just naturally. And then there's this whole spectrum from being really emotionally stable to a really emotionally unstable. And that, for the most part, is in our nature from a very young age, and something that is difficult to change, not impossible. But usually what you'll find is if you are more sensitive and more emotionally unstable, that will fundamentally be with you for life, but you can learn different strategies for how to temper it, how to reduce it, and how to reduce its impact on your life. So there's individual differences here, things that are just in your nature that you can't 100% change. And then it's also about knowing that we are all operating off a reward system. So there's you and yours when you're taking something personally, and then it's them and their reward system that's interacting with yours. So let's think of an example. So something that might have happened to me in my 20s was maybe the groups of girls can be, we all know what groups of girls can be like when they're all together. So maybe I didn't get invited to something that 3 of the girls are going to, and they didn't invite me. And they maybe didn't invite some of the others in the broader group as well, but I was one of the people that was excluded, and I'm taking that personally because that affects my status. That makes me think I'm not good enough, and they think I'm not good enough, and I care what they think because they are my peers and they are the people that I want to be associated with and aligned with. And by them not inviting me, I am now being given feedback that I am not aligned with them, that they think that I'm not as good as them, and so therefore they haven't invited me. So that's essentially the emotional alert that's going off in my system. So we need to first acknowledge with these types of situations that sometimes that rejection, well, it's real and it hurts, and we want to acknowledge how we feel and actually process those feelings. So it's okay to be upset and to maybe voice that to someone and express that, and maybe think of a way to also communicate it to the other people at some stage, maybe not straight away when we're really upset about it. Those are the times where sometimes we end up swearing at people and saying things that we don't really mean. So we want to be aware of that as well, have some self-awareness around when you're taking things personally as well. But the point is to not try to convince yourself that you shouldn't be taking it personally, or you shouldn't be feeling hurt or left out or rejected, because all of that is real feedback and it's something to be taken on board. On the flip side, we don't want to dwell on it, and that's what this video is about, is actually processing those emotions and moving through. So the first stage is to just let yourself feel upset and maybe vent to someone and do whatever it is that you do to self-soothe when you're feeling hurt and upset. And that threat that I'm feeling that's going off inside me, it really is a biochemical response happening in my nervous system. So you can't control it in that moment. it is real. It is the amygdala and other processes are happening in the brain that's saying to the nervous system and the emotional alert system, hey, there's a threat here, there's a threat, you need to have your attention on this. This is a real threat to your safety. And when I say safety, I mean your social safety, your status, and where you fit in your tribe. So once we've let ourselves feel sad or feel upset and then start to move on from that and start to kind of pull it together again, then we can really start to look at this situation and have a look at the feedback that you're getting when in that action of whatever it is that you're feeling upset about, and start to do some self-reflection and some reflection on the dynamic, the relationship, and the situation. So the self-reflection should be the first thing that we do. And sometimes when we're getting this failure feedback and we're feeling rejected by something or someone, there may be real reasons for that, and they may be associated with us. So maybe they didn't invite me because I always get really drunk and say and do crazy things. Or maybe they didn't invite me simply because they didn't have an extra ticket and there was a particular conversation and set of circumstances that unfolded that ended up being that only they could go. There's a whole multitude, endless reasons why that scenario could have unfolded as it did that don't mean me being someone that they don't see as an equal and don't like. Maybe though, there are certain behaviors of mine that are undesirable and that they were not willing to deal with in that particular situation. So we want to reflect on that and think, okay, is there something that I've said and done, and can I self-reflect and then can I start to improve myself? So sort of rather than sitting there being in that victim mode and being like, oh, they didn't invite me and it's so unfair and that's really rude and I'm so upset. So maybe it is us. Or maybe it's them. Maybe they are not really your equals. Maybe they're not really your peers and they're not really your people. And maybe it's time to reevaluate that situation. Maybe they're not the people whose feedback you should be paying attention to. And maybe there is a distortion within yourself where you think that they are the appropriate people for you to align with, and they're actually not. And those types of distortions are the things that lead us into all kinds of toxic situations and bring on a lot of mental and emotional turmoil. If you think you might be in that kind of situation and you're sort of letting people take advantage of you and not be very nice to you, then I recommend getting some help and maybe seeing a therapist and getting some help to go through that process of adjusting your thinking and reframing things so that you can actually see the truth of who you are and what you deserve and what you want. So when you really understand your best attributes and what you bring to the table, then you can really lean into that and sit into that. And that does help us, and especially as you go through the lifespan, it will help you to not take things so personally, because once you build your confidence and you build your self-esteem and you know who you are as a person and you know what you're good at and what your best characteristics and attributes are, you can't be shaken in those. And so it gets easier to not take things personally because you know within yourself, well, I know it's not because of X, Y, and Z, because I know that I'm a warm person and I know that I have this to give and that to give. So it can't be because of that. So whatever's happening within that person's internal universe and their reward system isn't about me, and my projection onto them isn't about them. As we come to understand this more and more, we begin to be able to let go of things more readily and to not take things so personally. This helps to build our humility, and humility is a wonderful characteristic, and it will help anyone move forward in life and be more successful in life. We need to be open enough to learn and receive feedback about ourselves so that we can improve. And that can be a painful process sometimes, and that is a part of life, and painful lessons are a part of life. But I often hear people talk about when they've succeeded in something and they might be winning an award, or they've received some huge accolade, and they'll say, oh, this is so humbling, I'm so humbled right now. And I always think, that's not humbling, that's ego affirming. Like, it's great to be recognized for your success, but that's not what makes you humble. What makes you humble is eating shit. Like, what makes you humble is when you fall, when you fail, when you get negative feedback, because you are forced to have a look at your flaws, and you are forced into self-reflection, or you might be forced into victimhood, but at some point you're going to come back around and you're going to be forced to acknowledge that this is within you, that there is some failure there, and it's being fed back to you. That's when humility grows. Humility grows after our failures, not after our success. So life is competitive, and especially when you're young, it's competitive in all the different realms of life and all the achievements that we're going through in life. It's more competitive when you're young, and it's a painful process, but it helps to know deep down that everyone is wrapped up in their own little world. They have their own internal reward system, and most of the things that most people do most of the time are about them, and it's not about you. You can reduce how much you take things personally over time by bringing in these strategies and learning this knowledge and really knowing it, and remembering that every time you feel rejected or upset by someone, letting yourself be there, but also taking on some self-soothing processes to grow through the moment, process through the moment, self-reflect, maybe change some relationships or change yourself, self-improvement. So it's always this process of learning, and it's always a process of self-reflection and reflecting on the others in our lives and figuring out what's true for us and what's actually supporting us and what isn't. So I hope you liked the video. If you liked it, like, subscribe if you haven't already, and I really hope to see you next time.